Yes, I just wanted to present you quickly what we have done since the beginning of the crisis, so because we are all aware of the restrictions imposed by member states for public health reasons. Member states can restrict free movement for that reasons, but of course they should remain proportionate and non-discriminatory. Last summer or end of spring, we saw an improvement of the situation, and member states took back the restrictions, but throughout the summer the situation got worse, which then led the Commission to propose a Council recommendation on introducing a coordinated approach. And I wanted to add that before we go to the DCC, because there is a parallel development that needs to be taken into account in this respect. So in October, the Council then adopted this recommendation introducing MEPs, green, orange and red, and measures that can be taken on travellers coming from these regions. These measures range from quarantine to testing, and of course member states wanted to have a proof for that, and then we realized that there is no harmonized format for that, and there were also falsifications around. So member states did not really trust that the certificates issued by other member states would be issued to a person which indeed has been vaccinated, recovered, or tested. And that's the reason why we then in March on the 17th adopted the proposal for the digital COVID certificate, as it is called now, and not any longer digital green certificate. If I still use the old word, please forgive it, but it was a bit of intense negotiations the last 2.5 months, so I might have been brainwashed by the name as well. So, but what have we done with the digital green certificate? It encompasses 3 different certificates, namely a vaccination certificate, a recovery certificate, and a test certificate. And what we have laid down, that if a member state waives restrictions on travellers holding such certificates, they should also waive it for holders of certificates issued for third countries. That's very important, because then we have the non-discrimination between our citizens, but we also considered it to have the tests on the same footing as the vaccines and the recovery certificate, so that you have the right to get it, and also the right to get in a digital format and a paper format, so that we do not discriminate against vaccinated people. The acceptance of such certificates is for the member states to decide. But as I said, if they accept a certificate, they should also accept it from should also lift the restrictions for holders of certificates issued by other member states. On the details for the vaccination certificate, member states are obliged to accept vaccines that have been EMA approved from the European Medicine Agency, but they are not obliged to accept others. As far as tests are concerned, we've included rapid antigen tests and PCR tests, and recovery tests are based on PCR tests only. And after the 11th day, you will then be able to get a certificate to show that you have recovered. How does the system work? We have established a gateway through which public keys are exchanged. So the person issuing a certificate will issue it with a private signature, and then through the exchange of public keys on the other side, the verifier can see whether indeed, by using that public key, whether the document has been issued by an authentic person. This is very important, because that allows us not to exchange data via the EU Health Gateway, which was also an important point for the Parliament, but I suppose Mrs. Inetfeld will elaborate a little bit further on that. What was also the outcome of the negotiations, that while member states retain the possibility to impose restrictions for public health reasons. They should refrain from adding additional restrictions to holders of vaccination certificates and recovery certificates, unless in a case of emergency, there is a new variant of concern. The Commission also committed to make 100 million euro available to the member states in order to support them to provide for affordable tests for citizens, because that is, of course, always a tricky issue. While the certificate as such is free of charge, the underlying tests not necessarily are free. Some member states do issue them free of charge, others don't. And it was very important for the Parliament, and we were happy to take it up to support member states to provide for affordable tests, in particular for those persons crossing the border on a regular basis. And you mentioned, yes, it was adopted yesterday, approved by the Parliament with 549 votes in favor, which we very much appreciated. The Council will adopt tomorrow, I think. So signature can then take place early next week. And in parallel, we've also worked on the famous recommendations that I mentioned in the beginning, which should lead to waiving restrictions for all vaccinated persons and persons who are in possession of the recovery certificate. With these recommendations, also the thresholds for coloring the different regions will be slightly changed, because we think that with the vaccination improving in all member states, the situation is getting better, so that we increase the thresholds, that more people coming from a green or orange region can then also travel easily.